Okay. So let's continue with the topic of the geography which I have started in the last week. So in the last week we have discussed about the various types of earth movements and the landforms which are formed due to those various types of earth movements. So earth movements are divided into two categories and that we have already discussed. Can you all see the screen? Is it visible to all of you? Can you all see the notes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So here we have seen that there are various types of earth movements, one which are categorized into endogenetic movement and exogenetic movement. We have already done with the endogenetic movements now. We have discussed about the endogenetic movements, which are actually the movements due to the internal forces of the earth, that those are called as endogenetic movements. So diastropism, that is the slow movements and sudden movements we have discussed. We have also discussed about the upward movement and downward movement and tensional moments and compressional moments and various types of landforms which are created due to this diastrophism that we have already discussed. We have also discussed about the earthquakes and volcanisms and that which are the landforms created due to the volcanism and which are the landforms created due to the earthquakes that we have already discussed, right? So in volcanism we have seen there is a formation of the lava plateau, there is formation of the lava cones, there are formations of what you can say the internal we can say the landforms and the intrusive rocks and extrusive landforms that we have already discussed. So today I am going to continue, or we are going to discuss with the exogenetic factors which leads to what you can say the changes in the landforms, right? So in geographical landforms we need to understand two things. One is that some of the landforms are created completely, what you can say the new landforms are created and new landforms are created due to the internal forces. And once the landforms are formed, once landforms are created or on the surface of the earth, these landforms undergo changes. So what type of changes? Like the changes may be due to the what you can say the earthquake or volcanism, or that changes may be due to what we can say the external factors, right? So whatever we have discussed till now, those were related to the internal factors. Today we are going to discuss with the exogenetic factors which are not related to the internal forces, which are related to the external forces, right? So the impact on those landforms on the surface of the earth, landforms like mountains, plateaus, then what you can say the valleys, these landforms undergo changes due to the external factors, and these external factors are more what you can say influenced by the climate and what you can say the climate on the atmosphere, right? So exogenetic moments are again divided into two types. One is called as weathering and erosion. Third one is called as deposition. So deposition is not mentioned here, but the third important what you can say the exogenetic moment which takes place in the on the surface of the earth is called as deposition, right? So first weathering takes place, weathering of the landforms, and then the erosion of the material which is weathered in the first process, and after erosion there is a deposition. So obviously some new landforms are created due to this weathering of the landforms, then erosion of the landforms and deposition of the landform. So these landforms are categorized into what you can say landforms due to the weathering of the material, landforms due to the erosion of the what you can say the landform, that is erosional landforms, and certain are the depositional landforms. Depositional landforms means the landforms which are created due to the deposition of the eroded material from the earlier landforms, right? So first we'll try to understand what is weathering. That is weathering means the breaking down of the upper material or upper layer of the landforms due to the various what you can say the factors like physical weathering due to the physical factors, then chemical weathering due to the influence of the chemical what you can say the forces, the weathering or the loosening of the upper part of the rock material is called as the chemical weathering, and third is called as biological weathering. Biological weathering means what? Loosening of the upper part of the land surface due to the biological activities or activities due to the like plants or animals or what you can say the insects, and these are called as biological what you can say the weathering. So basically weathering is what? Weathering is a what you can say loosening of the upper crust of the earth, right? Upper crust we have seen lithosphere. Lithosphere is the upper crust of the what you can say the earth surface, and that upper layer of the earth surface or the upper layer of the landforms are what you can say weather. Weathering means the impact of pressure, impact of temperature, impact of what you can say the rainfall. Due to this impact of this weathering elements of weather, the upper part is loosened, and that is why it is called as weathering, right? So तापमान किंवा पाऊस किंवा आपण म्हणतो की प्रेशर ह्यांच्या परिणामामुळे आपल्या पृथ्वीच्या सरफेसवरचा जो भाग जो लूज होतो त्याला आपण काय म्हणतो वेदरिंग म्हणतो. गॉट इट? सो वेदरिंग इज अ phenomenon which happens once the landform is created, then external forces, then because of the external forces like rainfall, pressure, winds, or what you can say due to the decrease or increase in the temperature. So some of the what you can say the upper part of the upper layer of the earth surface, what you can say loosens, and that is what is called as weathering of the landforms. Hello, am I audible to all of you? Can you all hear me? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So which part did you listen last? My video got disconnected, right?
No, sir, it was audible only.
Audible only, okay, fine. Check.
switch off.
So the external movements happens in a what you can say the phased manner. First is there is weathering, and there is erosion, and there is deposition. So again, various landforms are formed due to this weathering, erosion, and deposition. So we will see which are the landforms caused by the weathering, erosion, and deposition. Right. So can you all see the weathering now? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Weathering is what a general term which describes the general process by which rocks are broken down at the earth's surface into sediments, clays, soils, and substances that are dissolved in water. So what happens in the weathering? The upper layer of the rocks are broken down at the surface of into sediments. So when the rocks are broken into small pieces, they are called as sediments, right? So sediments, if the size is very what you can say fine, then it is called as clays, and soils and substances that are dissolved in the water, right? So all those substances which are dissolved in the water at the upper level, this is called as a weathering. So the process of weathering typically begins when the earth crust is uplifted by tectonic forces. So due to the internal forces, when the landforms are created, that when the mountain is created, or when the plateau is created, or when we have seen that the hills are created, or when the what you can say the new crust is created, new what you can say the landform is created due to the tectonic forces. After the physical breakup and chemical decay of the exposed rock by weathering, the loosened rock fragments and alteration products are carried away through the process of erosion. So once the material is loosened, that material, that loosed material, that is the sediments which are loosed, sediments or clays, these are what you can say, these are eroded away. Erosion means what? Right? So these are eroded away by the various what you can say the agents, like it may be eroded by the water, it may be eroded by the wind, it may be eroded by the glaciers, it may be eroded by what you can say the underground water, right? So after weathering, there is a process of erosion, and after erosion, the erosion relies on transporting agents such as wind, rivers, ice, snow, or downward movement of material carry weathered products away from the source area, and as the weathered products are carried away, fresh rocks are exposed for further weathering. Over a time, that mountains or hill gradually go down. So what happens in weathering? What happens is whenever there is upliftment of the mountains, when there is a weathering, and after the erosion, the height of the mountain reduces, the height of the plateau reduces, the height of what you can say the hill reduces, because after weathering, like once the weathering, the upper layer is what you can say weathered away and eroded away, then again the rock is again exposed, and that exposed rock is again weathered, and in this way the height of the mountain what you can say that reduces. So you know that there are some mountains in the world which were once upon a time, they were one of the what you can say one of the highest mountain peaks in the world, but they have their height is reduced now. For example, the Aravalli mountain range in India, where once upon a time where the height of the Aravalli mountain ranges were like the Himalayas now. The Himalayas, the height of the Himalaya is around, we can say 5,000 meter right now. That is around, that is 8848 meter is the highest mountain peak, but the average height of the Himalaya is around 5,000 meter. but the height of the Aravalli is around 2000 meter now. So why the height of the Aravalli mountain ranges, which are found in the Rajasthan, is around 2000 or 3000 meter? Because Aravalli were also 5000 meter height, but due to the continuous weathering, due to the continuous erosion, and due to the continuous, what we can say, the erosion away of the material of the from that mountain, the height of the mountain is, what we can say, decreasing, right? So the height of the mountain increases due to the internal forces, due to the compressional forces, or and the height of the mountain reduces due to what we can say the weathering and erosion, right? So as the weathered products carried away, fresh rocks are exposed to further weathering. Over a time, the mountain or hill is gradually worn down. Worn down means the height of the mountain reduces, right? So the weathering of the rocks is influenced by what you can say the rock structure, whether the rocks is folded or faults or joints or what you can say the voids. This is again influenced by the climate, that is temperature and precipitation. If the temperature is high, the precipitation is very high, then the decrease of the height of the mountain is very high. Then also it depends upon the topography. Topography means what? If the what you can say if the place is what you can say slow, then obviously the rate of erosion is high. If the topography is plain, then the rate of erosion is low. So the rate of erosion may be high for what you can say where the topography is what you can say the more sloping, right? Yes, Ritika, any doubts?
So this type of weathering comes under physical weathering.
Yeah, physical weathering due to the physical what you can say factors, like for example weathering due to the water, sorry, due to what you can say the decrease or increase in temperature. You know what happens is sometimes suppose if the temperature increases during daytimes or maybe during the summer, then what you can the rocks expands, and during winter time what happens that due to the decrease in temperature the rocks contracts. So due to this continuous expansion and contraction, it leads to what you can say the breaking down of the upper rock material. So if the upper rock material is breaking due to the physical factors like temperature, pressure, then it is called as physical weathering. If it is due to the chemical factors means what? If the upper rock material is what you can say breaking down due to the chemical reactions, the change in the chemical, what you can say the characters of the rock, then that is what is the chemical reaction. And if it is the upper material of the rock is broken down due to what we can say the biological activities. Biological activities means you know that human being is trying to what we can say what you can say agriculture, right? So in agriculture the human being tries what you can say plow, right? Plow the sand, so plow the soil, right? It leads to breaking down of the upper material. Or some of the animals, like some of the animals like rabbit, some of the rodents, some of the, what you can say the what you can say the serpents, or what you can say the reptiles, they what you can say break down the upper layer of the rocks, right? So that is called as the biological weathering. And even we know whenever the plant grows, due to the growth of the plant, whenever the roots are what you can say growing into the soil, into the rock, it also breaks down the rock structure, right? So that is what is called as the biological weathering. Got it? The difference between physical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay, so the weathering of are influenced by the rock structure. If the rock structure is hard, if the rock is hard, then obviously the weathering will be slow, and if the rock is soft, then the weathering will be high, right? So I am going to discuss with you the different types of rocks and rocks classification in tomorrow's session. But you need to remember that some of the rocks are hard and some of the rocks are softer. So if the rocks are harder, then obviously the weathering process will be slower, and if the rocks are softer, the weathering process will be what you can say the faster, right? Again, the climate is also very important. If there is what you can say more difference in the climate, like if the high temperature and low temperature has a wide range, like there, like for example, you know why deserts, if you go to the deserts, in the deserts the temperature at the night is very low, and the during day the temperature is very high, right? So because of this high difference in the temperature, that is the high difference in the high temperature and the low temperature, leads to more weathering or more breaking down of the rocks, right? Because during the daytime the temperature falls very high, and during the night time the temperature falls very low, and because of this continuous contraction and expansion of the rocks are broken down. Got it? So precipitation, amount of rainfall, amount of temperature also influences the weathering of the rock. And topography, obviously if the slope is there, weathering is high, and if it is plain, then obviously the weathering is what you can say weathering is various, or the weathering is very slow. Fine. Okay. One second, I have got an important call. Hello. Yes. Yeah, Kapil, actually I'm in a video conference. Can I call you back maybe after 1 hour? Yes, I will call you back. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, got it. So these are the factors which influence the weathering of the, what you can say, weathering of the uh, land surface. And again we see, well, natural vegetation. So obviously natural vegetation slows down the erosion and slows down, what you can say, the weathering. So natural vegetation binds the rock decayed organic matter to formation of the carbon dioxide humid acids by penetrating into roots into the earth surface. Now physical weathering you can see here. Can you all see the picture here? The breaking down of the upper layers, this is called as physical weathering. So the upper surface of the rock weathers due to what, due to the decrease in the temperature. That is how the physical weathering takes place. So the physical weathering can be, what you can say, categorized into various types. That is the frost action. Frost action means what, you know, during the winter here the what you can say, the snows are, what you can say, deposited, and when the snows are deposited in the cracks, they, what you can say, they expand, because we know that when the ice is converted into, what you can say, when the water is converted into ice, the volume increases and it expands. So the repeated action of water freezing into the pores of the cracks of rocks and growth and melting of the ice crystal in the pores spaces of soils and rocks for fractures. The rock fractures disintegrates even the hardest rocks like granite. Frost action occurs predominantly in the cold climates. Then temperature also leads to that I have already discussed. Then salt crystal growths. Then chemical weathering, it results from the chemical reaction between the mineral rocks and external agents like air or water. Oxygen oxidizes the minerals to alteration. So due to the chemical reaction, also the upper layer of the rock, what you can say, the broken down. That is explained here. So it converts the minerals to clays or dissolved minerals completely. Then the chemical reaction or the chemical weathering mainly occurs in hot and humid climates where heat and moisture are more in abundance. The third type is called as various types of chemical processes, that is hydration. Due to the action of the water, the chemical characteristic changes, that is called as hydration, then oxidation, then carbonation due to the carbon, what you can say, the introduction of the carbon dioxide, then solution, when some of the material gets, you can say, dissolved into the water, then that material is also loosened down. Then hydrolysis, water combines with rock minerals to form insoluble precipitate like clay minerals, and that is the way through which the various processes through which the chemical weathering takes place. You don't need to remember all these things, but you just need to understand the concept, right? Second is biological or organic weathering. It is the disintegration of the rock as a result of the action of living organism. So living organism, like here you can see that roots of the plants are breaking down the rocks. Here also you can see the biological activities, that is the plants are trying to, what you can say, break the rocks. Here you can see that. So microscopic organisms like algae, moss, lichens and bacteria can grow on the surface of the rock and produce chemicals that have potential of breaking, what you can say, breaking out the layer of the rock. So plants can also break down the outer layer of the rock, and that leads to weathering of the land surfaces, right? Then there are differential weathering. Differential weathering is also explained here. You can say differential weathering means what? Here you can see in this picture, the lower part of the rock is weathered more and the upper part of the rock is weathered less. So that leads to formation of such type of land, which looks like what you can say, which looks like a mushroom rock. So this is a fine example of a mushroom rock. This type of landforms are called as mushroom rocks, right? So this happens because, what you can say, difference in the rock structure, difference in the what you can say, the softness and hardness of the rock. So upper rock is hard while the lower rock is soft, and that is why the lower material is weathered quicker than the upper material. So that is why the upper material is intact while the lower material is, what you can say, eroded. Fine. So this is called as weathering. Next is erosion. Erosion means what? Once the material is broken down, then it is eroded by various agents. So these are called as erosion. Any doubts about the weathering? Got it? What is weathering? Weathering simply it is breaking down of the upper rock layer of the earth surface. So it may be due to physical weathering, it may be due to biological weathering, or it may be due to chemical weathering. So after the weathering, there is erosion. Erosion means whatever the material is eroded, whatever the material is broken down, then what happens? That leads to what we can say, that leads to what we can say, the erosion of the material by various agents like water, wind, ice, etc. So we will see the process by which the surface of the earth is worn away by the action of water, that the material can be worn away by water, it may be by glaciers, it may be by winds, it may be by waves. So this is usually considered under the four distinct categories. So there are four types of erosion. One is called as water erosion, which is also called as hydrological erosion. So water erosion means erosion due to the flowing water, which is also called as fluvial erosion. So the geographical term used for the erosion due to the water is called as fluvial erosion. So fluvial erosion erodes the rock material and the landscape by transporting weathered material from the source to another, what I can say, the water they are deposited. So once the material is eroded away by the water, it gets deposited at some places. So after erosion, some landforms are formed, and when the material is deposited somewhere, then then depositional landforms are also formed at the deposition, right? So then wind, the same thing. If the material is eroded by the wind, they are called as wind erosion. Some wind erosion landforms are formed, especially in the desert areas. Various types of what you can say, the aeolian landform, which is called as landforms created due to the winds, are created, and the material again gets deposited somewhere in the desert itself. So some of the depositional landforms are also created due to the wind erosion. And last is ice, which is called as glacial erosion. So glacial erosion is due to the moving ice. That we know, when the ice is deposited at the sloping area, then obviously that the ice which is deposited at the sloping area, it moves in a slow rate. Not like the rivers, but it moves in a slow, what is the rate, and that is what is called as glaciers. So erosion occurs when particles are plucked up or incorporated by moving ice, such as glaciers, and is transported downhill. And when the friction between the ice and the bedrock erodes material, then the transport them downhill. So what happens here? Also in the glacier, also there are some erosional landforms and there are some depositional landforms. So erosional landforms are formed at the, what you can say, at the top of the hill, while the depositional landforms are formed at the what you can say, at the bottom of the hills. So that also we will see which types of landforms are created by the erosion of the landforms and the deposition of the landforms due to the glaciers. And then last, sometimes the material is worn down due to the what you can say, due to the gravitational force also, right? So that also we can see that gravitational force facilitates to downslope transportation of loosened weathered material and enables them to, what you can say, move without the aid of air and wind. So gravity related erosion is a major component of mass wasting events. So there is one term in the geography that is called as mass wasting. Mass wasting means what? Keep pulling down of the rock material at the bottom due to the Earth's gravitational force is called as mass wasting. Right? Third type of erosion is called as fluvial erosion that we have already discussed. Fluvial erosion means what? Erosion due to the water. So we will see, but before seeing this fluvial erosion, we will see one video which is related to what we can say, the weathering, erosion and deposition. A small video we will see, then we will continue to the various landforms created by the fluvial erosion, then avial erosion and as well as the glacial erosion, right? So just give me a second, we'll be searching a video which will help you in understanding the erosion, weathering and deposition. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me meanwhile. Yes, Ritika, you have any doubts?
No, sir, not yet.
Okay. So just give me a minute.
So the erosion caused by agricultural fertilizers and stuff, those can also be considered as chemical erosion.
No, erosion due to, see, in agriculture, the farmers tries to loosen the upper part. So that is biological weathering. And when the rainfall occurs, and in that rainfall, if suppose the soil is moving away, or the upper rock material is moving away, then it is called as wind erosion, or it is called as the fluvial erosion. Got it?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you all see the screen now? Is it visible? Can you all see the video?
Yes, sir.
Check. So I'm playing this video which will help you understanding the weathering, erosion, depositional and how the landforms are created. Okay, one more video we'll watch. This is a very simple video which has helped in understanding what is weathering, erosion, deposition, right? So weathering and after erosion and deposition is whatever the material is eroded by the wind or water or glacier, they are deposited somewhere. So when they are deposited somewhere, a new types of landforms are formed here. That is what is explained here, right? So we'll see one more video related to this weathering, erosion, and deposition. Uh,
पाऊस म्हणजे फ्रीज डब कंडिशनर्सने मिळवा स्मूथ फ्रीज पासून सुरक्षित केस. If you write anything on your computer, you need to get graphic.
I write pretty much all day. Hi guys, in this video we're going to look at how weathering causes rocks to break into sediments, erosion moves those sediments, and deposition places those sediments in another place. We're going to talk about what weathering is and the two types of weathering, mechanical and chemical weathering. Then we're going to talk about erosion and deposition. So firstly, weathering is basically taking a big rock, breaking little tiny pieces off that rock over a long time to create what we call sediments. These sediments are just smaller chunks of that big rock. Weathering is caused by the weather, the elements, and there are two ways to do it, either mechanically or when we say mechanical weathering, we're talking about any physical process.
so mechanical weathering and physical weathering itself. So in physical weathering, this happens due to the mechanical forces. That is what is also called as mechanical weathering sometimes.
Where these rocks are being turned into sediments. So this could include wearing away of rock by water. So the waves of the beach lashing up on the shore wears away the rock at the bottom. And you can actually see here, this is a picture of the 12 apostles, and you can see that the weathering is causing, where the waves are lashing up against that rock, causing the rock to disappear there. So we see all these little bits where that weathering, mechanical weathering, is occurring from the waves. It's not only the waves, if water is running through a stream, that's going to cause weathering on the base of the stream and eventually turn it into a river. And there's a few different types of mechanical weathering. So water freezing is included in mechanical weathering, and basically if you ever put a glass bottle in the freezer but forgotten about it by accident, you know that when water freezes it expands. So the same way that bottle cracks because the water has nowhere to go, water that seeps between cracks in rocks expands and cracks those rocks because it's got nowhere to go. Roots from trees can also grow in between those cracks and act as a wedge, causing those rocks to break off, weathering. Chemical weathering, on the other hand, is the process of chemicals wearing away the layers of rock. When we say chemicals, we're usually talking about acids, and in particular, something we think about is acid rain. So acid rain is able to dissolve particular types of rock, such as limestone and marble, and increases the effects of weather, of the mechanical weathering. So the rain is already going to place some stress on the rock, causing it to wear away. But if that's acid rain, it's going to place more stress on that rock, causing more weathering. And it's a bit funny to think about rain and wind and things like that as causing rocks, something as big and tough as rocks, to disappear. But this is something that happens over a very, very long period. Erosion is once that rock has been weathered and broken into sediments. Erosion is the movement of these sediments. So if those sediments are held together, for example, you've got a forest sitting on top of those sediments, or dirt holding it together, they will probably not erode too much. But if you have cleared that forest and you just have, say, a fallow paddock, when it rains, quite a lot of erosion. Deposition is the settling of sediments into another place. So we've taken those sediments from the rock where it was weathered, it's then eroded to another place. Deposition is depositing those rocks on the floor of another place, and usually this occurs on the bottoms of lakes and saltpans, things like that. Over years, these rocks, the sediments rather, can cement together and form new sedimentary rocks. This process starts all over again. In this video, we've looked at weathering being the wearing away of rocks by the elements or weather to smaller rocks called sediments, and we've looked at the two ways that this can happen through physical processes called mechanical weathering, such as wind, rain, rivers, ice freezing, plants growing between it, and we've looked at chemical weathering, where chemicals cause that weathering. And usually in this case, we're talking about acid rain. We talked about erosion that occurs when these sediments move from the water from one place to another, and deposition where these sediments are deposited on the bottom of usually a lake, and then can be cemented together to start the process again. Thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.
Fine. Okay, so am I audible to all of you now? So these are the various types of yeah. So these are the various types of what you can say the erosion and weathering. So we need to discuss here that what type of landforms are created due to the fluvial erosion, due to the aerial erosion, that is due to the air wind erosion, and due to what you can say the glacial erosion, right? So that we will see in the next session. So 2 minutes are left. So I'm ending the session here now, and you have to join again using the same link so that we will discuss the what you can see the various types of landforms which are formed on the surface of the earth due to the weathering and erosion. Fine. So I'm ending it here now. Join it again by using the same link which I've used it to join up.